GM everybody, welcome to your weekly Frax check, your weekly Frax vibe check. I'm your host, Capital K, and we're going straight to the source of truth via checking the chain. But before we jump in, please subscribe and like and go to flywheeldefi.com to learn more about our new website and also for every educational content you want about Frax finance and DeFi. Now, this week, deep breath, guys, deep breath. This week, I call it down but not out. And as the name, frankly, self explanatory, we're going to dive straight on in with the first thing that is down. That is our flagship stablecoin, Frax. The Frax stablecoin dropped by 70 bips this last 2 weeks, down to $806 million. This is definitely not what we want to see. Granted, Frax was designed to scale up as well as scaling down. So here's just the down part of that equation. And I do believe that this is the lowest point that we've been in this year so far. So we are marking a new low here. And hopefully in 2 weeks, I have better news to report. But as Dave was saying 2 weeks ago, this is what bottoming looks like, y'all. This is what bottoming looks like, the bottoming process. And again, regardless whether it be bottoming or topping, we got to check the peg because that's what a stable coin is all about. So here we saw that the peg got as high as 0.998 and a low of 0.996 on the Frax Finance dashboard. And obviously here we don't trust dashboards and we got to hop straight into the market to see what's up. Note here that I titled it curve swap. However, we're using the 1 inch exchange instead. Let me share with you why. So normally, as all frequent and regular viewers of the show knows, that we use the Curve Finance's Frax BP base pool, and for that we will swap 100 million of Frax for USDC. However, as you can see on the bottom of the screen here, and for those listening, there is a imbalance in the Curve base pool of 78% and 22% Frax and USDC. So because of that, we obviously can't just use that one pool to demonstrate the liquidity. We have to go to 1 inch. But what's important to note here is that even on 1 inch, when we swapped 100 million of Frax, we received an exchange rate of 0.995. So even if the pool, the base pool, which is the Frax base pool, which is frankly the largest liquidity pool for Frax, is so imbalanced, the peg is still holding strong at 0.995. This is frankly not the best news, but also the peg is strong. Nothing else to say to that. Now, let's take a look at the balance sheet of the Frax stablecoin. Here, you see that our excess equity, as I like to call it, meaning our assets plus lock liquidity minus liability, our balance here is 84 million, which is actually down 14%. It was closer to 100 million 2 weeks ago. And a easy way for you guys to think about a collateral ratio here, the dirty math way, is to simply take the assets, the owned assets plus lent assets divided by liabilities. That should give you the collateral ratio for the month, and or rather for the current point in time. And remember, there was a proposal passed earlier this year to drive the collateral ratio to 100%. So every resource, every revenue, everything is being geared towards driving that point home. And that's going to bring in a ton of further possibilities for the Frax stablecoin. Not to mention the Frax V3, which is again soon TM. Nonetheless, let's move on and take a look at the collateral ratio and the decentralization percent as it is today. Now we have a 94.5% collateral ratio, a bump of 0.5% from 2 weeks ago, inching one step closer at a time towards that 100% collateral ratio. Here in the decentralization percent, we saw a huge jump of 31%, now marking a high for the year at 25.3%. We love to see this, so we are very excited that the assets that makes up the Frax stablecoin is 25% of it is decentralized. Now, moving on to the liquidity as a service, aka the Frax base pool. As mentioned, and you can see here, and for those listening, their TVL is 450 million, and the Frax supply is 350 million of that, roughly, and USDC is 100 million of that. So you see there is a clear disparity in there in the pool. Now, in terms of volume, though, there was $46 million in monthly volume facilitated so far in August, representing a 10.2% utilization rate. Now, remember that this Frax base pool is not the only curve pool that's Frax related. We also have the Frax 3 CRV, which is at 19 million, and the Frax PP, which is the Frax and USDP at 129 million. And if you add all that up plus the Frax BP, we have about almost 600 million in Frax related liquidity on Curve compared to 223 million for the native 3 pool token, or rather the native 3 pool. Clearly, Frax is still dominating the liquidity game on Curve. Now, moving on, we have the favorite child at the moment, or the favorite product rather, that is FrxETH, showing a bump of nearly 3% up to 253,124 ETH for the week so far. Really great show of strength here. And where are all of these FrxETH hanging out? Well, 69% of it is chilling in the SFraxETH, and 22% is chilling in the Curve LP pool, and else 8% is just hanging in the Ether. And this 8% here is actually the monetary premium, as in all the FrxETH that is not being used in any of the in-house Frax ecosystem products. People are just simply holding these FrxETH or using it for other means outside of Frax, which is what we want to see. I believe the highest number we got here was 11% earlier this year. But the higher this number, the higher the yield for SFraxETH and Curve LPs are. So we want to see that number go up. And again, FrxETH is none other than a stable coin. So we got to go and check the peg. Here we went directly to the market, swapping 3,500 FrxETH to ETH to receive an exchange rate of 0.9983. Very, very strong peg compared to all the other LSDs. And even though there is a slight imbalance in the curve pool of 73% FrxETH and 27% ETH, and is currently yielding 3.9% in APR, with 2.2% coming from Curve, 0.2% from Convex, and 1.4% from FXS rewards. Now, after we check the peg, we got to compare this to, well, frankly, the market landscape. And it's not good. And it is not good. For the last 2 weeks, we have grown 0%. Okay. We have grown 0%. I guess we're not out. I mean, rather, we're not down, but we're definitely not up either. So this 2.2% growth market share relative to Lido's is 74.4%, CBE's is 11%, and Rocket Pool's 8%. So we're still definitely the smaller one by a magnitude across the board of these 4 competitors. But what's more alarming is that Lido is growing on a 30-day change of 6%, whereas FrxETH is only growing at 5%. Granted, FrxETH is growing faster than CBETH and Rocket Pool at about like 4.5% for each of those two. So although we are growing faster than these other two these other two competitors, Lido is ahead by miles just because of its size and its current growth rate. So we got a lot of work to do, but you know what's one area that FrxETH doesn't have to do that much work and still be on top? That is the yield department. And in here, we are offering 4.8% APY for FrxETH, representing even with 423 million in TVL. And you see here that on the right hand side, and for the listeners, there's a chart on facts.frax.finance where you could view a comparison between holding 1,000 ETH for the last 6 months, 1 month, 1 year, year to date, whatever you want, and on whatever time frame, FrxETH outcompetes its competitors. Here, I chose the 6 month time frame, and over the last 6 months, FrxETH has outcompeted our ETH by 48% and STETH by 29%. And this is the same across any time frame. So go to the website, take your pick, and choose whichever time frame that suits you best. And you'll still see that FrxETH is definitely on top. Now, switching gears to the middle child, aka FPI. And here, FPI is usually a product that I fairly go over quickly. Simply, there wasn't that much movement. However, this past 2 weeks, we saw a lot of big changes. Its supply grew by 2.2%, up to 84.6 million FPI outstanding now, and an annual inflation rate of 3.3%. Now, this is notable. I mean, 2.2% seems low, but this is notable because the supply hasn't changed for months. And here's the first uptick that we've seen. So this is definitely something to pay attention to. Additionally, for the annual inflation rate, it got as low as 3.1% the last time we spoke, and now it bumped to 3.3%. So this, I think, is also the first uptick we saw in annual inflation index that FPI is pegged to. Speaking of that, the peg for FPI is actually above by 17 bips right now. And that is largely thankful for the treasury, which is currently has 91.8 million in TVL, 37% of which is in convex and FPI frax, convex FPI frax. And there is a $4 million of equity. That is, if you took the treasury minus the FPI liability, whatever remains is the 4 million that could be given to VEFPIS or whomever. But that is the excess after fulfilling all the liabilities. Now, next, we have pretty much the only star of this FraxCheck, but also not a great star because it's a sad ending. But FraxLend, which currently has 238 million in TVL, facilitated 66.6 million in borrowed Frax, which represent a 74% utilization rate, which is a rate that we like to see. We like to see utilization around the mid 70s to low 80s. But that is not what we want to discuss today. Today, what we want to talk about is the massive all caps locked liquidation that happened this week. And it was, or rather last week, it was rather painful. It was a great day for FraxLend in terms of top line revenue, but it was a terrible day for the users who got liquidated on the platform. And I believe that I did some math and we pulled in above $227,000 in liquidation fee on FraxLend on that single day. And that is just an astronomical amount. I believe that is the highest we've seen so far in FraxLend's history. And also another note is if you could just figure divide that by 9%, which is the liquidation fee on FraxLend, and what is the total notional value that got liquidated. Very high, very painful. RIP out there to all the users and the liquidated users, and please be safe out there, guys. We don't like to accrue this revenue, but we will take it when it is presented. And like I said, just go ahead and be safe. Now, moving on to another sub protocol, the one that's least talked about, which is FraxSwap. FraxSwap here is currently holding 67.7 million in TVL, which is a small drop of 3.5% over the last 2 weeks. But regardless, it's still facilitating over $50 million, $52 million in trading volume. That is 74% of its current TVL. So 74% of its TVL, meaning the utilization rate. Now, this rate is, I would wager, to be above 67 million, given that the top pair, the Frax FXS and Frax liquidity pair on FraxSwap, generated nearly 15 million in trading volume over the last 7 days. And that has been usually the average of what the FXS Frax pair gets on a 7-day basis. So we keep on seeing this for the remainder of August, plus a couple of other pools performing. We could be really close to that 100% utilization rate on FraxSwap. And with that said, I want to take a point here and comment on our first, I guess, not first, but the title of being down and out. 2 weeks ago, Dave said that we're in the bottoming process. And frankly, this is what it looks like. Things are definitely on the grimmer side. Pools are imbalanced across the board, all-time low on the Frax stablecoin supply. The FrxETH growth is kind of stalled, and just things seem stagnant and frankly painful to watch. But know that there are many innovations and growth catalysts coming down the pipeline. First, we already saw FraxGov being implemented. That pretty much fell under the radar because it was launched the same day, or rather the day after Curve was initial, that the whole Curve situation with Michael's position. So that pretty much flew under the radar. And FraxGov drastically changed the way Frax governance operates. We're now no longer susceptible to the $5 wrench attack, or in this case, with the founders, I think 4 out of N, so $20 wrench attacks across all of the founders. So that's no longer a thing, right? Now we just protect it against one vector of attack. So that's one element. Second pit is FrxETH v2 is going to be released, and that is going to decentralize the validator base. Right now, that has been a huge concern for a lot of LPs, whether it be funds or whether it be just high net worth individuals, or even the average Joe at home, looking for an LSD product. Now that when FrxETH v2 launches, it would allow anybody, not just anybody, actually the best validators to come and compete to run a FrxETH validator and get the best yield in the game, even more so, but now decentralized. So decentralized governance, decentralized validators. And lastly, with FrxETH v3, there's going to be drastic changes to how Frax operates. And there's been a craze of bringing treasury yield on chain. That has been kind of the theme across the board for any of these DeFi protocols, from Ondo to Maker. And frankly, that has been a vacuum just sucking up liquidity across all of DeFi. Why risk for anything when you can earn up to 8% holding DAI? So because of that, Frax is definitely pivoting, and not pivoting. Frax is definitely expanding on its roadmap quickly so that it can also offer this directly to its users, but in a much better design. And if you want to learn more about that, we also covered it in one of our articles on flywheeldefi.com. Anyways, I don't want to, belabor you with any more of these points, but to learn more, and if you're curious, head over to flywheeldefi.com and just know that growth catalysts are coming. And if you want to keep on checking on these growth catalysts, please smash that subscribe button, like, and follow. We're on Twitter and Telegram at Flywheel DeFi, and obviously our brand new spanking new website at flywheeldefi.com. So hop on over there. You'll find everything. We've curated the top Frax finance education content for you. So be sure to check that out. And you want to follow me, I am at 0xcapital_K on Twitter. And I will see you soon. Peace. Don't get liquidated.